NATO leaders say, quote, significant differences remain despite hours of de-escalation talks with Russia over Ukraine. Russia has staged approximately 100,000 troops along Ukraine's border, sparking concerns of a possible invasion. The Kremlin continues to deny accusations it plans to attack the former Soviet state. Meetings to ease tensions between the U.S., Russia, and NATO began in Geneva Monday and resumed today in Brussels. A third meeting will be held tomorrow in Vienna. For more on what all of this means, I'd like to bring in CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini. Christina, the meeting today lasted, as you know, almost 4 hours. Why did it go over, and is that any sign of progress that's being made?
Good afternoon. Nice to see you not on a weekend. So the Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, who's kind of running these talks for the U.S. side, said one of the reasons it went so long is because there are 30 member nations of NATO and every single one of them spoke at this meeting. So to be fair, they wanted to give Russia more time as well to speak their piece because, as you can imagine, it's got to be hard to sit there and listen to 30 different speeches about why people are mad at you. So they wanted to give the Russians a chance to, buff up their side a little bit. At the end of the press conference today, she said she was asked if there were any breakthroughs, and she said, no, but we're not even at the negotiating point yet. The U.S. had made a couple offers of places where they thought they could collaborate on the Russians, and reporters were pressing her as to whether or not, they made any progress on any of those different lanes. And she said, we are just putting out ideas. We're not negotiating. This is not that kind of summit. We are here to express our concerns with Russian aggression. They are here to express their concerns with NATO, and we all got in the meeting and did that. So nothing was really resolved. Russia didn't commit to any kind of de-escalation, but as she said, they didn't walk out either. So maybe that's a good sign.
I'd say that's a good sign to start. The Europeans and the U.S. obviously want Russia to pull back the forces on that Ukrainian border. We've noted 100,000 troops. But what does Russia want in all of this?
So Russia, if you could picture Vladimir Putin kind of wandering through the Kremlin singing Cher's "If I Could Turn Back Time," that's pretty much what he's asking NATO to do. He wants them to go back to before they started admitting these countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union into NATO. He wants the NATO to agree that they won't protect those countries. They'll pull all, heavy equipment and soldiers out of those countries, and that they will agree not to admit any new countries, especially Ukraine, who it's in their constitution that they aspire to join NATO. Now, people were asked today whether or not that was going to happen, and everybody kind of couched and said, look, there's no timeline, but the NATO countries are committed to helping Ukraine take the steps necessary so it will be in the position to apply for NATO. But the President Putin has alleged that NATO is posing a threat to Russia, and he's also alleged that Ukraine and the actions by the Ukrainian government are posing a threat to Russia. The U.S. today, Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman said, Russia is a huge country with swaths of territory and, next to the United States, the biggest nuclear arsenal out there. How could very small Ukraine be posing a threat to very large Russia? She says that argument doesn't really hold water, but it's still the argument the Russians are making. So they came forward with all these concessions, all these demands that the U.S. have said pretty straight out are non-starters. The U.S. wants Russia to pull back its 100,000 troops, saying, we can't do diplomacy basically with the gun to our head, right? If you want to talk, if you want to have discussions about these other things, they've said they're willing to talk about not putting missile systems in Ukraine. The U.S. doesn't want to do that. Russia doesn't want it. Hey, look at that, common ground. The U.S. has also said they'd be willing to talk about intermediate range nuclear missiles. Both countries until year before last were in something called the INF Treaty, which was banning those missiles from Europe, either the Russians or the U.S. That treaty fell apart. So the U.S. is saying, well, we'd be willing to talk about that too, but we don't want to do it with all these forces poised to invade a country that we don't think should be invaded.
Are there concerns, Christina, that this is all a show for Russia, or do officials actually think that the Kremlin will eventually agree to that diplomacy in a way to de-escalate the situation?
I mean, there are big concerns. I asked Secretary Blinken before these talks started last Friday if this could all just be kind of not almost a ruse, but an excuse for Moscow to say, look, we gave diplomacy a chance. The U.S. didn't budge on any of these demands, and now we're going to go into Ukraine. And Wendy Sherman kind of said the same thing. It's unclear at this point if this was a real negotiation. She said she's not even sure if the Russians who are there know whether or not it was. But the State Department, the Biden administration made the decision that it was better to talk than to not talk, to go in, to have everybody speak their piece and see if there are any little pieces that they can grab onto and kind of anchor future diplomatic talks, future diplomacy, and maybe future progress onto. But so far, we haven't heard anything too tangible coming out of these very long, it sounds like, discussions.
And that's always seems to be the goal. Everyone speaks their piece in an effort to get to a peaceful resolution. But the fact that those troops have been there so long gives a lot of people pause about what's next. Christina Ruffini, thank you.
Thanks, Sharika.